Hey, entrepreneurs, welcome to our Connect session where we talk about business, money, and all things that pertain to how you can secure your financial future as an entrepreneur. Today, we are going to talk about business risk and why it is such an important concept for you to articulate for your particular business. Because when it comes to mitigation strategies, there is no one size fits all solution. So by the end of our time together, you should have an appreciation of why it's important to understand the risks that are inherent in your environment. And this knowledge is what's going to form the basis of your risk management strategy because effective management requires that you have clarity on your particular context. So yeah, let's get started. Let's begin with a lay explanation of risk, and that is the possibility that an event or an action will lead to an unexpected outcome. And this is more often than not, negative. So, risk is a general concept and it is not limited to business activity. But business risk is a specific type of risk that affects the ability of a business to achieve its intended goals. So let me use an example to illustrate business risk. Imagine that you are a phenomenal baker and you sell scones for a living, but your business is still in its infant stages. And so you start off by selling on the street corner where you currently have no structure to provide you with shelter against the elements, whether it's too hot or too cold, rain, etc. On a day when it rains, there are potentially limited chances for you to make a sale, depending on, I guess how heavy the rain is. If the rain is heavy, then it's unlikely that you're going to go out in that kind of weather. And in the event that you did decide to brave it, you would face the possibility that nobody will stop, take out cash, and actually make a purchase. So effectively, if we look at it, from the earlier definition that we started with, the goal of your business is to exchange your baking skills for revenue. And rainy weather is the risk event that can limit the ability of your business to achieve this goal. Okay. The first point I want to make about, you know, risk in general and business risk more specifically is that there is no business that is free of risk. And and if you're convinced that yours is an exception, then I'll be happy to prove you wrong after this session. So please do get in touch. But if we look at this particular example, you can see that just because you bake well, and let's say the community loves your scones and you've built a loyal customer base, that doesn't necessarily make you immune to the negative impact that bad weather can have on your revenue. The second point is that a business risk and risk in general can be due to factors that are outside of your control. And in this particular case, is the weather. Having said that, I think it's important to say, there's no need to fret because the goal of risk management is not so that you can have absolutely everything under control. But what you're aiming to do is to find the best mitigation strategy. What's important here is that you must know what to mitigate against. And that's why I said in the beginning that context is going to be key in this exercise. So, how do you determine this context? Is, I guess, what is going to bring me to my third point about business risk. Business risk will make itself known to you based on how your business is set up. So you need to look at your value chain as a point of departure. Okay. In this particular example, the reason that the weather is a business risk for you is because you sell from a street corner. The reason you are selling from the street corner is because your business is still in its early stages of maturity. If, for instance, you had a physical store that you were selling from, then the weather would be less of an issue. If you were maybe supplying your scones to a coffee shop, then the weather would still be much less of an issue. So here, the weather is only an issue because of how you take your product to market. So let's say a few months down the line, you found your rhythm with customers, and the money is coming in quite steadily. And as a result, you are able to afford to rent a stall at the nearby taxi rank. At this point, the negative impact on revenue that would come as a result of heavy rain would be limited. You may find that because it's raining, there would be people, within the precinct of the taxi rank that are looking for shelter as they are commuting. Potentially, as people are milling around, they notice you and your product, and you might even gain new customers because of this dense situation that the weather is presenting you with. So effectively, then the same weather conditions that would have hindered you as a startup on the street corner have now presented an opportunity for you to gain new customers because you've slowly moved out of that maturity phase. So now solving for rainy days is even less of a priority on your risk management strategy. Now, I want to issue out a warning here that I think will be useful when you're considering your context, and it is this: do not be tempted to act or perceive based on what your competitors or your peers are doing, or what businesses your size or businesses that are at the same level of growth and maturity. And the reason is because a business risk can be very nuanced, even for businesses that are operating in the same industry or businesses that are seen to be providing a similar or same product slash service. Again, I'll explain myself with an example here, and let's look at e-hailing services. And I'll talk about Uber, and I think only because I don't have personal experience using any of their competitors. Okay. So Uber operates what you would call a two-sided market that effectively brings together passengers who are looking for rides that provide them with convenience, rides that are affordable. On the other hand, there are drivers who have cars, who are entrepreneurs, who are self-employed individuals, and are looking to use their cars to earn an income. And so Uber then, through the mobile app, will act as the middleman between these parties and provide a platform that allows both sides, so the passenger and the driver, to find each other on their platform. And they then pay themselves by taking a percentage for each transaction that is concluded on their platform. So every driver that is an entrepreneur looking to find customers on the platform effectively interfaces with the same platform and with the same strategic partner, which is Uber. And every customer that is looking for a ride also interfaces with the very same platform, the same app on their phone, on their smart device, etc. but the product differentiation or the proposition differentiation within the platform, and I'll take two in particular. So Uber Go and Uber Black are almost very different propositions that sit on the same platform but are targeting different customers and are providing a different experience from a ride perspective, certainly from a pricing perspective. So an entrepreneur driver who is part of the Uber Go proposition will have an entry-level car. They'll offer budget-friendly rides that are targeting, everyday commuters and people who are price sensitive. Okay, they are not looking for luxury. They're looking for the most cost-effective way to get from point A to point B. Whereas an entrepreneur driver that is part of the Uber Black offering will offer high-end vehicle and is looking, to meet with those customers that want a premium experience, that are looking for comfort, they're looking for style, they are far less sensitive about price. They just are more concerned about getting where they need to go in the most comfortable way possible. So these two drivers are effectively two business owners, and they face slightly different risks. And the things that keep them up at night will not be the same. So, for instance, let's say a taxi strike or tensions like we've seen with the recent National Taxi Association, with them and e-hailing providers, that kind of event is less likely to impact an Uber Black driver and will be much more of a concern for an Uber Go driver. So, from a business risk perspective, the prioritization for these two drivers for that particular risk will be different, even though they are both Uber drivers operating on the same platform. And I think the point here is just because you are part of the same supply chain or you operate in the same industry or that your business is in a similar phase with, somebody else's does not mean that you should be prioritizing the same risks as entrepreneurs or other entrepreneurs within your orbit. And the reason for this, I mentioned it earlier, is that there is no one size or there's no what's the term, one size fits all solution when it comes to managing business risk. How you do it, how you approach it, what you consider, how you prioritize the risks that you have identified is very much dependent on your context. Otherwise, your prioritization would be off the mark, and your entire risk management strategy could be thrown off kilter. Okay, so I have said quite a lot for today, and I think I want to leave it here so that I can give you an opportunity to ask questions, share your views, and let me have your thoughts. But maybe let me just end off by summarizing the things that I spoke about, and I'll just give you 3 points. Well, I think it was 3 points all along, but the first thing is this. There is no business that is free of risk, okay? No matter how solid your business plan is, okay? Secondly, the goal is to manage the risk. You may not be able to control for everything, but you cannot manage what you are not aware of. Which then leads us to the third point is how do you become aware? Context is everything. So having a look at your value chain should be your point of departure. And that will sort of point you to where there might be gaps that you need to look at, just depending on how the whole thing is structured. And again, maybe fourth point or bonus point, risk is nuanced. Okay, it is going to be very specific to your particular business, not just your industry, but your business within that industry. And so, yes, I'm going to leave it there. And I'm going to open up the floor to your comments, your questions. Yes, please let us discuss. I'm certainly hoping that if you hadn't been thinking about risk management up until this point, you will following this session. All right. Thank you for your attention. Yeah, I'm going to open it up over to you.